In this video, you're going to learn how to monitor network traffic and get notified when someone goes to a website that they shouldn't go to. First, we're going to create a daemon, create a script, monitor some traffic, and then set up notifications. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to start off by creating a daemon. So I'm going to do who am I? I am root in this session, and in another session, I'm actually a different user. And the reason why is because root is going to be monitoring the traffic of Debian on this system. So let's create a daemon. I'm going to, I don't want to nano, let's just touch this for a second. Tutorial.sh. I'm going to say chmod. We're going to make it executable so we can run this a little bit later. I'm going to nano etc, and what I want to do is I want to create that daemon, right? So let's go ahead and do that. It's going to be in systemd. Oops, systemd. And I want to target system. We're going to call this tutorial.service. This is a service. Okay, so we're going to start off with a unit. And in that unit, we're going to have a couple declarations. I'm going to create a service, and then I'm going to trigger my install here. Install. So first, we're going to create our unit, and then we're going to move into our service. First, let's call it just tutorial, I guess. Description is going to be tutorial. Did I spell that correctly? Okay, looks good. Okay, and so after, what we're going to do is have this set up after network target is online. So after our network, online target. So when our system is booting, it's going to run through all of our daemons. And once our network is actually active, once we have network activity, it's going to allow this to be launched. So go exec, start, and we're going to have that run that tutorial script, right? It's in root tutorial.sh. That's what we called it earlier. Now, I don't want it to be on a failure. I'm going to just have it restart always. There's a few ways you can do this. You can have it restart always, which is great because that's going to do exactly what we expect. If you have a restart on failure, then once the script terminates, it's just going to terminate your daemon. Your daemon is just going to be offline, and that's not what we want. We want it to always be online. We're not going to watchdog this, right? It's going to be simpler than that. We're just going to use a basic daemon to constantly restart our script over and over and over again. And that's going to give us our desired outcome. So I want this to be wanted. See if I spelled everything correctly. Unit description. Okay, this should be good. Let's go ahead and enable this. Systemctl, we're going to say enable, and we want to enable our tutorial service. There it is. Okay, now let's do a status on that. Let's do systemctl, restart tutorial service, and it's probably not going to work. It's going to fail, I think, because there's nothing in our script. Status tutorial service. Yeah, exit code. Doesn't know what to do. It's like, okay, got a script, but we don't know what to do with that script. So let's tell it what to do. Nano. I'm in my working directory here, so I just should be able to get it. There it is. Perfect. So we're going to shebang bin bash. We're just going to echo hello. Hello. I can spell that correctly. Echo hello, and run that same command. Code exits. Okay, so we have a different status. Pretty cool. It's a success. Okay. But my service is actually not online, and we'll fix that in just a second. Okay, so now what I need to do is I want to get two different tools, one called TCP dump and also another one called TC pick. And those tools we're going to use to help us monitor the traffic and actually analyze the traffic. So TCP dump, yes, and probably need to actually apt install that, right? TCP dump and apt install TC pick. These are two cool tools. That's gonna, here we go. Good to go. Now, if we run TCP dump, what are we going to see? We're going to see all sorts of traffic, SSH traffic, right, from my host machine getting into my VM. And this is my my VM here over the SSH protocol, communicating with the head, essentially, of this VM. I can't see my IP address because the VM is not aware of my IP address, because this is just the nature of how the VM is actually set up. So if we just take a look at our nano etc resolve conf, we're resolving here to our name server. This is the head of our VM. You can, well, we just do an easier way of doing that here. IPA gives us our interface. That's our interface there. Our INET. This is our virtual IP address being bridged from the host machine. Okay, that's cool, right? So, there's a lot of different things we can actually run with TCP dump to kind of see what's going on in the system, what kind of traffic is being requested, what kind of domains are trying to be looked up. So let's do that. Let's do TCP dump, and I want to write out to root, and I'm going to write it out to just dump pcap. I think I'm just going to call it dump.pcap, and I want to what am I going to do? I guess I'm going to grep out. Let's just grep out Google. You could do any website. You don't have to do Google, but. And so we're going to be listening, right, for traffic on this machine that's going to be going to Google, right? And Google doesn't really exist. It's just a FQDN. It's a fully qualified domain name, but it doesn't really exist, right? There's an IP address associated to it, and the IP address does exist. It's something more concrete. But how do we get there? We're going to do we're going to try to resolve, right? So let's go ahead and resolve on this Debian user. So we're going to say curl, probably spell that correctly, curl google.com. Bam. Okay. And let's take a look at this, close this. And it says we have, in our TCP transaction here, we have 96 packets received by the filter and 0 packets that were dropped by the kernel. So let's take a look. Let's analyze this traffic and see what's going on. Okay, let's tcpic, and we're going to get a color output reading the file dump. Okay, so what happened? We have our SYN sent, which is just us trying to establish a connection from our IP address, our IPv4, our private IP address in a private range. This is a private range, going out to this IP address, which is actually Google, but we don't know that. And this IP address will change based on your location. So we have a SYN received, right? Google is saying, hey, we received your HTTP request. Connection is established. It's going to fin wait 2 times. Wait again, and then it's going to close the connection. The TCP connection is closed at this point. And that's just one TCP session detected because I only curled out the website just once. Pretty cool. So we're going to use this information, actually not all of this college stuff, because in this PCAP, you're going to have a lot of syntax that is going to be really unhelpful for us. But what's cool about this output is it gives us an understanding as to how this TCP stream is actually working, what's going on, what's happening. It doesn't give us all the information that I want to see, but it's really, really cool. So if we take a look at the OC model here and how it relates to the TCP IP family, what we just did, what we looked at was happening on the transport layer, right? To where we have TCP or UDP. But in our case, we're not using UDP, we're using TCP. It's our transmission control protocol. And so what I want to do is I want to have one user that's going to monitor the traffic of another user, which we just did. We're going to filter that, okay? We're going to use a script to do this, and then we're going to put it into a log file, which we just did a second ago. I'm going to scan that log file and set up a condition to establish a trigger, a webhook trigger, to then notify us on a certain condition. So let's do that. So earlier we created a daemon, and that daemon is going to be running in the background, running our script, but our script is not finished. So let's go ahead and work on our script. But quickly, before we do that, I want to tcpic, and I want to show you some really cool commands. And I need my interface for this, and I don't know what my interface is. So we're going to say IPA, and there it is. That's my interface. So we're going to say tcpic. What I want is I want to establish my interface as this interface, and I want to say YP. I want a colorful output too. We'll do each, and I don't, crap, human readable. I want it to be not port 80. Let's do not port 80. I'm going to see something really cool. Take a look. So it's listening for anything that's not port 80. And what you're going to see, obviously, what we saw earlier is, SSH traffic. So this is all of the, hex output of the SSH traffic that's actually happening on this machine as my host machine is speaking to this VM. Just a bunch of garbage, right? Because it's encrypted traffic. we can see something interesting here. We know it's SSH traffic going from this VM to the head of this VM. It's pretty cool. Let's do the same thing, but let's do not 22 so we can get some like web traffic, okay? So I'm going to curl, let's curl Yahoo, okay? Okay. Ooh, I got redirected. Oh, funny. Take a look. So what's cool about this, I'm just going to close the TCP connection here. It's already closed, but I'm going to close the command. So what do we see? What's going on? So I'm monitoring traffic on my interface from all users on this machine. Oops. And I want to know what's going on that's not port 22. Nothing's happening on the machine. So any web traffic that's going to sort of transpire is going to show you this. Okay. What's cool about this is we see that we are trying to resolve yahoo.com, but we don't know what yahoo.com is. We don't know where to go, right? And so a DNS resolve is going to, from this machine, is going to propose us this IP address based on our location, right, as an HTTP protocol. And we're actively looking to establish a connection from our IP address to their IP address, right, where their web server is. Their web server is going to receive our TCP request, and it's going to then establish the request, and then we're going to have download some information, and in this case it's HTML, right, through the HTTP protocol 1.1, based on our user agent, which in this case is just curl. You'll use a browser, so this will be a very different output if you're doing this from a browser. And our host is yahoo.com. We're then going to get information from yahoo.com, which they're going to say, okay, it's just a web server, not very intelligent. They're going to say, hey, you're looking to access our website. Well, let me give you some information based on your request. And Yahoo's going to say, 301 move permanently, just based on the type of request that we made. If we made this request with a HTTP protocol or HTTPS protocol, we're actually going to get some actual HTML in the output. And it says, hey, you've been redirected because the type of request that we actually made through curl. And then the rest of the communication before getting closed, and then the session is terminated. So that's actually really, really cool. Look, we actually got a little bit of an output here. Looks like a hex output. So that's cool, right? So let's try that again, but let's try that on a different website. We'll do Facebook. Actually, I can't do that in my network because I can't access Facebook. My firewall won't let me. Let's do the same thing with Yahoo, but we're going to go and specify a protocol, the HTTPS protocol here. It's all encrypted. We can see that the HTTPS protocol is actually encrypting the traffic. We can't see anything that's going on in this output here, which is kind of cool. So I hope you can see the power of TCP dump and then also TCP pick in terms of scanning your PCAP file. So before we build the script, we need to actually get an output that's going to be visible, right? Something that we can actually read in a very human way. So if we vim the dump, we're going to see something. Oh, I don't have vim. Look at that. If we nano the dump, we're going to see a lot of just gibberish. It's just nonsense. It's the way that PCAP can render out colors and spacing and all that stuff. So styling. So that's totally not helpful for us. We're not going to be able to use that at all because we're going to try and grep out some information. But if we try to grep out information here in a PCAP, we're going to fail miserably. So what I want to do is I want to create a variable and then pull out information from the PCAP file that's going to be easy to read. So let's do that. I'm going to call it tdump. And tdump is going to be set to TCP dump. And we need TCP dump to actually pull out some content, 1, 2, 3, 4, from the PCAP file. 2 ends, 1 R, and then I'm going to specify dump. I need to pull out that dump. I'm going to grep out anything in that PCAP that's going to be related to google.com. And there we go. So now I have a variable. I'm not going to echo it out because it's going to create a lot of mess in my terminal. But what's cool about that variable is it's going to be something I'm going to use in just a minute to pull out a condition. Write a conditional as to, is it X or is it Y, or is it A or is it B? Does my output exist? And that's going to be helpful because we're going to create a loop in just a minute. We're going to use that loop to check the variable to see if the variable has any content. So a good way of doing that in Bash is just running a -z to see if we have anything in our variable. Also, I need tdump, right? tdump. And we're going to say if it has anything, run this, echo maybe true, else echo false. I can spell false. Okay, so it says false because we're looking for a value. So we're saying, hey, is this a nil value? Does it have no value? And it does have a value, so it won't run this first part. It'll run the second part. So if we go ahead and run the same command, but just use t, for example, which is a variable we have not set, it's going to say true because, well, it is empty, right? T is empty. So that's quite helpful. We're going to use that in just a second. Let's get into our script tutorial, sh. I don't need that. So what I do need is I need a webhook for a little bit later. We're just going to follow the same sort of principle I've been using in the last few videos, just using webhooks to notify a Discord channel. And I'm just going to copy that and paste it from off screen. It's going to be a little bit easier for me. And I need a variable to be negative. I need a variable that has no information in it. So we're going to call it tdump like we did before. Probably spell that correctly, tdump. Just going to set it equal to nothing. And I need a loop, right? So I'm going to say while. And I'm going to run a condition in here in just a second, or an evaluation. And I'm going to do. And then it needs to end. So what am I going to be doing in this loop here? So what I need to do here is find out if my variable is empty, right? Just like we did before. I'm going to say tdump string if the string is empty. And I need to run the TCP dump, but I don't want it to run forever and always. I just want it to run for a few seconds so we can scan to find out if the user is actually going to, our Google website, for example. You can make this whatever you want to make it. So Linux has this nice little commandlet called timeout, and I'm going to run TCP dump on a time out of 3 seconds. So after 3 seconds, stop running TCP dump. And the TCP dump is going to need to write to root. And this is just my example. You don't need to do it this way. There's 100 ways to do this, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently probably than you might do it. And I'm going to grep out google.com. Okay. So next what I want to do is I want to take that variable that's empty, tdump, and I want to assign it something, right? So we're actually taking TCP traffic, right, from the machine. We're filtering it. We're only looking for google.com right here. And then what I want to do is I want to fill up this variable with information, assuming that there is information coming from our TCP dump output, where we're writing it to this pcap. So just like we did before, I'm going to say TCP dump, and I'm going to look for an output in an R, and this output is going to be coming from, oops, I can't tab there, root. It's going to be coming from that pcap file, dump pcap, and I need to grep out Google, grep google.com. So what's happening here? I'm saying run TCP dump, so scan the network traffic, timeout after 3 seconds, write that information out to the root directory dump pcap file, so write it out to a pcap, but only look for google.com, so anything trying to resolve, any user trying to resolve google.com. And then what I want to do is set an in-memory variable, right? The variable up here that was empty outside of our while loop. We're now going to assign it information, only if that information does exist. So obviously, if there's nothing in there, it's not going to implement anything into the string, which we're looking to evaluate whether or not it's empty or not. And so the backticks here is just going to allow us to associate the output of this command into the tdump variable. So next what I want to do is I want to add the date, just append the date to the, well, that file doesn't exist, does it? But if I do this, it will exist. So we'll do root, and we'll say dump.txt. So there's the output going here, and I want to actually echo out tdump, so the variable, what actually the variable is holding into that file as well. So we'll say tdump, and I want to append to root dump.txt. So in our output, we're going to get the dates, and then you're also going to get the date from your TCP dump command as well, but that's it's just cool to see this because if there's nothing in this variable, we're at least going to get a date output. So it kind of gives you a window between when content had been filled and when content had not. It also allows you to see that this is actually running correctly, right? Because it's going to be running every three seconds. And the way this is going to work here in our evaluation is, while this variable is empty, it's going to run all this. But if the variable actually has something in it, well, this while loop is going to exit. And once it does exit, we need to know that it exited so we can do something with it, right? Okay, let's go ahead and reload our daemon, get a status 0 packets. So that's pretty cool. So we haven't found anything because nobody's gone to google.com. So here we see that I'm on the Debian user, and what I'm going to do is just curl out google.com. I should get a notification in Discord. Hey, pretty cool, right? So there's my string output. If you remember, we're not actually saying anything other than string, but you can make it, whatever you want it to make it. Just that's your output. Have some fun with it. So there you have it. So the glaringly obvious assumption that I'm making in this video is that you're going to be really not using DHCP leases, because obviously, if you were using DHCP leases and that lease were to be renewed for that IP address of the user, well, then you'd no longer be able to be monitoring the correct user. You'd be monitoring, well, who knows, somebody else, right? Another way of doing this is to sort of associate the MAC address of the user to a variable, right? And you would use this maybe in your script, or you maybe use it somewhere else. Well, I hope you found this interesting. I'm going to put this script up on my GitHub.